It is 4 o'clock and we are underway. Thank you all for participating with us. I am Cigus Vanni. I am known as the College Fairy because I flit around in the neighborhood and I watch after students and families to be sure that they are doing what they need to do in order to reach their goals for post-secondary education. Joining me today is Claire Casanova. Claire, in addition to being a talented musician and an incredibly nice person, is a presidential scholar at Temple University. She's like a real smarty pants. Oh my God. So we love the fact that she's giving her time for us today. She will be on the chat and the question and answer and feed me questions as we go along. So let me do a little bit of background for you so you know to whom you're speaking. I spent 15 years working at a small liberal arts college. In fact, one that had a pretty high quality music program. I served as an instructor. I was assistant dean of the college, and I worked in the admissions office. I then went over to the dark side, meaning I went to high school, and I spent 26 years as a high school counselor, 2 private schools, 2 public schools. I actually retired from public school counseling in June of 2016. I now do independent work, helping students and families around the area. And I am the college coach for Project 440, for Philadelphia Music Alliance for Youth, and for Settlement Music School. The most wonderful irony of all of that, I have no talent at all in music. I play the radio. That's what I can do with music. But Claire, along with Chloe Cooper, her friend, started something called Generation Music, which is a program for students. Claire and Chloe are graduates, quote unquote, of Project 440, and they help students in Philadelphia who want to continue their music, learning how to play different instruments and also use it for community service. So God bless Claire and Chloe. This is a wonderful job that they're doing, okay? So we already have a couple of questions. I'm going to jump right into those and we'll just keep going and see what we can do. The first question asks about homeschooling. How can homeschoolers be prepared for requirements for music schools? And a corollary question, what are the requirements if a student wants to do a minor in music or a dual degree? Well, the requirements for homeschoolers for music are not any different from the requirements for schoolers. The requirements for homeschoolers academically are often very different because homeschoolers need to prove that they have taken a curriculum worthy of a college entrance, documenting that as clearly and as accurately as possible, with as much detail as they possibly can, to be able to show the college that they can be admitted and that the college would have feelings of success, that they would be able to thrive at the college where they would come in. Homeschoolers are also usually asked to do more in terms of testing. Now, this is a difficult and challenging situation with the pandemic because it has been exceedingly difficult to find a place where you can take a test. Many students have shown up ready to take an SAT or an ACT and found that the school where they were supposed to take it was closed. Schools have 24 hours before the actual testing before they are required to cancel. And so even if you did get an email ahead of time, you might not be thinking, well, hey, the test is tomorrow. Of course it's going to be fine. Well, maybe not. So colleges are starting to adjust their circumstances and see if there's maybe other ways that a homeschooled student can show that they are worthy of being admitted. There are other tests that are not as difficult to take. The classical learning test, for example, is online, for instance. There are a number of different, the AP, the advanced placement tests were given last year online. So there are other ways that homeschoolers can make themselves known. Clearly, the best thing to do would be to put together a solid academic program for the 4 years that represent high school. So 4 years minimum of English, 4 years minimum of math, has to include algebra and geometry because they're required from a public school in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, pretty much everywhere. 4 years of science, including at least 2 lab sciences, 3 to 4 years of a social studies, and at least 2 years of a world language. That's the minimum that I want to see if I'm a college admissions officer from a homeschooled student, from any student that applies to my university. So you start with that. That's your minimum part. When you go up the scale, looking for colleges that are more selective, that have higher quality, then your classes need to have equally high quality. So many homeschoolers that I know take AP exams. Anybody age 13 or older can take an AP exam. You do not have to be in an AP class to take an AP exam. If you wanted to take an AP exam, you find your local public school AP coordinator, you email them and you say, hey, I live in your district, I want to take an AP exam, what's the fee, when do I show up? And they will admit you. They should admit you, let me say that. There are some that there's issues with space and et cetera, all of that. There's issues like that. Erin, if you have raised your hand, anybody, hand raise thing is not really working for us. So if you could put your question in the chat or in the question and answer, that would be wonderful to do. Right, so you can take an AP exam in order to prove yourself. Another way is to take a class at your local community college or at a 4-year school that makes one available to you. Community colleges are easier because as long as you pass their placement test, reading, writing, and math, not the toughest test in the world you're going to take, then you can take classes at that community college. And this is a way of showing, look, I did 13th grade level work when I was in 11th grade. And you can show the college that you've done that. Right? Music is the same. Are you really good at your instrument? I don't care if you're homeschooled or not. That's what I'm looking for. It's the audition. It's your professionalism. That's what I'm looking for music. Now, if you want to do a double degree, here's the deal. You have to first specify which degrees you want to do. What do I mean by that? Oh, I want to do music and I want to do math. Nah, not actually what I mean by that. I mean what type of degree. So if you want to do a degree in music performance, that's called a BM, a Bachelor of Music or a Bachelor of Fine Arts. If you want to do a degree in music education, that's called a Bachelor of Arts, a BA. Big difference between the two. The BM requires 2/3 to 3/4 of your classes to be in music. Think about that. If 3/4 of your classes are clarinet, music theory, orchestra, ensemble, that 1/4 is probably not enough to allow you to do a second major. Many colleges have what are called distribution requirements, where you have to take a writing course, a math course, a science course. But even if you don't go to one of those schools, let's say you go to one that's an open curriculum. If you're going to take 40 classes, and you're going to need 3/4 for music, that only leaves you with 10 classes. And a Bachelor of Arts is going to take you 12 to 14. Whew. Unless you have credit from AP, credit from International Baccalaureate, credit from those community college classes, that would be exceedingly challenging to do in 4 years' time. Now, if you wanted to do the degree in math along with music, a math degree is a Bachelor of Science. And a Bachelor of Science is 1/2 of your classes. That's a little more than 1/3. There is no way that a student could do a Bachelor of Music and a Bachelor of Science in 4 years. No way. Because you would need 50 some classes to be able to complete both majors. Not going to happen. Yes, you might be able to bring in a bunch of credit, but think about it. You're going to burn out your soul. There's nothing worth burning out your soul for to do. To do a music major and a math minor, to do a math major and a music minor, no problem. A minor's half a major. Half a major. So if you wanted to do a minor in music, you'd have to take 6 classes. There you go. Easy enough to be able to do. Okay, so that's the issue with that. Let me go back to see what we have. What would you suggest for another one? Music and math, trying to make decisions. I would suggest that you ask your head and heart which one comes first. I would also ask myself, do I really enjoy practicing music? Do I really enjoy the gritty daily grind that music will give me? Have I turned that into pleasure for myself? Have I transcended that grind part and now I really feel inspired by my music? What do I want for my future? Do I want to be a violinist in a major orchestra? Well, then I better get a BM, so nobody's going to take me seriously. If I go to a college and get a BA in music, which means that almost 2/3 of my classes were not in music, then the Philadelphia Orchestra is not going to be really happy with me. So again, here you have to look at what you want for yourself. BM in music, BS in math, no, not in 4 years. BA in music, BA in math, not very helpful. Because if people who want to hire mathematicians or people who know mathematics, they want a BS degree as opposed to a BA degree to do. BM in music, minor in math, absolutely not a problem. Not a problem to do. One of the better resources I can share is a website called Majoring in Music. One word, Majoring in Music. I think it's .com. It's something, .com or .org. They have a listing of music scholarships. They have a listing of music schools, and they can help walk you through what's required if you wanted to do some kind of dual degree. Okay, right, so that's a little complicated. So I want to make sure that we have that down to do. So what else do we have here? Questions. Should we respond to the chain mail we get added to for the colleges we are thinking about applying to? The answer is yes. There is a new variable in college admissions. Those of you who are 4,000 years old, like I am, did not have to deal with the internet. My application was done on paper using a typewriter. And I'll never forget that great Saturday morning. My mother was a bookkeeper in a factory, and she got the key to the office, and we went down and we used the electric typewriter. Oh my God. It's like the greatest thing ever. The internet's changed all of that. So now colleges know when you open emails. Colleges know when you reach out to them. Colleges know when you take their virtual tours. This variable for colleges is called demonstrated interest. Colleges will swear up and down that they pay no attention to it. There may be some that pay less attention to it. There are none that pay no attention to it. Why? Because they use a customer relations management, CRM, called Slate. And Slate picks up every one of these exchanges. Every one. So I just have to press one button and it says Tom Dooley, 16 contacts. I can see that. Okay? Students would call this sucking up. So either way, demonstrating interest, sucking up, it is in the student's best interest to follow up. I will tell you that admissions officers have told me that if it comes down to a last minute decision, maybe there's 20 spots left, there's 100 students, and you've been the one that's been pursuing that school, not stalking. Do not stalk your school, right? But pursuing that school, you get extra points, and you're likely to be the one that's going to be admitted. So that answer is yes. That answer is yes. Do you need to respond to every school? No. No. You can ask to be taken off an email list. Please feel free to do that. That helps the colleges as well. You do. Okay. What about music production? Are the admissions requirement the same as BM? No. There is often an audition, but not always. It depends on the school. Depends on the school. There are other requirements, typically having to do with physics and math, because you need to understand acoustics, you need to understand electricity, there's a number of different scientific applications for music production. If you have a business program in your school, it would help if you took an intro to business class. If you have an economics course in your school, it helps to take an economics class. But you need to be cognizant and proficient enough about music so that you can understand what makes music saleable, what makes music producible. And that doesn't have to be in classical genre. That can be anywhere around to do. Okay? There are subgroups of music production. There's music management. You would be, say, the agent for Elton John. There's music advertising. So you're out there on the social media with individuals on the music scene. There's all kinds of different subgenres of that to do. A student that I had years ago, a really accomplished violinist, said to me at one point, I think it was in her junior year, she said to me, Cigus, there are how many jobs for violinists in major orchestras? 100. I'm a good player, but I'm not one of them. So she went to a school and pursued music, but she did a BA and at the same time did a BS in music production. And she now runs a talent agency in New York City. Like, how cool is that? That's just like the coolest thing ever to do. Plus, New York City has like the best thrift stores ever. So good for her to do. So great stuff. Great stuff. There's also audio engineering, which is a major in acoustics. The Audio Engineering Society, AES.org, will list for you all the schools that have a major in audio engineering. Okay, so these are the soundboard people. These are the acoustic people. These are ones that do the sound checks and the mics and all of that. Very technical, very technical issues here. But if you think about the sounds that they can produce and how subtle these things can be, and what a difference that might make for a band or soloist, wow, these people are geniuses. It's amazing. It's amazing what they can do for that. Okay. Music production, we've done that one too. Okay, what else? What else do we have? Let me see.
There's another question in the chat that kind of relates to this topic from Sophia. If I want to major in music, should I also minor in something that ties into it, like psychology or liberal arts degree?
Great question. I think that depends on the level of interest you have in those other areas, Sophia. If you wanted to tie something into it, certainly behavior is one, psychology would be one, business is another. Honestly, if I ran a business program, if I ran a music program at a college, I would require each student to take one business class, at least one. I don't want you to get ripped off. You compose something in one of your theory and composition classes, and it turns out to be a really alluring piece, somebody picks it up because it's just out there on the internet, and then you hear it on a commercial. So I want to make sure that you know what your intellectual property is and that you're not going to get ripped off by that. The University of the Arts, by the way, in Philadelphia, requires their artists to take 2 business courses. Good for you, University of the Arts. Good for you. So, Sophia, you could have diverse interests. It could be music and French literature. It could be music and physics. Well, they're not that diverse because there's all this like acoustic stuff to do. It really is up to you as to what you want to do with all the courses that you would take that would not necessarily be directly related to music. There's also music education. So you could do all the performance parts, and then you would take, there's 6 courses in the state of Pennsylvania. It's not that much different in other places, but there are 6 courses in Pennsylvania that you need to be able to be certified to teach. You need an intro to psychology class, an intro to education class, a developmental psychology class, child, adolescent, etc., an educational psychology class. You need a methods of teaching class, and you need your student teaching. That's your sequence for being able to get certified. And the certification for music education runs K through 12. You could be in a preschool, you could be working with seniors in high school. It runs the entire span for that. So that's another thing you can do, especially if you've had a particularly moving and affirming experience with your music teacher. That could be you 10 years from now, helping some other student do that and have that for them. Okay. All right. What else?
Here's another question from Alexa. What's the best way to determine which schools have the best teacher? Sorry, my Alexa started responding. What's the best way to determine which schools have the best teachers for a certain instrument for performance degree?
That's a tough one. I'm going to say, and I don't mean to be a wise guy with this, but I'm going to say that's mostly your personal research and your personal preferences. And I'm going to give you an analogy here. I'm a 6'5" basketball forward. The school that I want to attend certainly has to be a school that wants me and is willing to give me a scholarship. But the school I want to attend has to have a coach with whom I feel comfortable. I'm going to be in that coach's scheme. I'm going to have to believe in that coach's way of leading the team. I'm going to have to function as a member of that team. I'm going to say that's the same thing for you as a musician. So your teacher is going to be clearly the most important part of your selection of the school. So you have to determine, what scheme do you like? Do you want a teacher that, let's say, I don't know, specializes in something? Do you want more of a generalist teacher? Do you want a teacher who's a little more modern, for instance? And here you do your research, you ask around, you talk to musicians, you go online, you do your work for that, and you find the ones that are most accepting to you. Then you make your list of schools and you go for your audition. Now, God willing, auditions might be back to being in person. Right now, they're typically on Zoom, or you do a pre-screening on Get Accepted or Slide Room or something like that. But when you finish your audition, it is perfectly legitimate for you to ask for a sample lesson from the teacher that you would have at that school. So let's say, for example, you are thinking about Juilliard and you play the bass. So you do your audition and it goes pretty well. And you know that Joseph Conyers, who's the head of Project 440 from the music part, is a teacher at Juilliard. You can email Joseph Conyers and say, yo, Joe. Well, that's if you're from Philly, right? You can do it any other way if you want. You can ask Mr. Conyers for a lesson, for a sample lesson. And then you can actually feel what it's like to be with that individual. Now, you see time and time again with sports that students decommit from a school when a coach leaves. A perfect example of that was Penn State last week. Penn State's basketball coach resigned, which, if you ask me, was a great thing because he was a racist pig, but that's just asking me, okay? A student that had committed to Penn State decommitted and now is not going because that's the coach he wanted to play under. Works the same way with music. So you have to really put your ear to the ground and find out as much information as you can. I mean, understand that this is going to take some time. This takes a lot of work and a lot of effort on your part, but that's the payoff. Like I say, you actually find the right person right straight up to do that. Okay. Do the conservatories also have music education programs? Some of them do. Again, that's another one of those, take a look and see what they have. Typically, the smaller conservatories do not. The Curtises, the Juilliards, the larger conservatories, Oberlin, they will, because they have a wider array from which they can do. It doesn't actually mean that you can't do a music education program, because if the school has a certification program in education, if you find the right people who are willing to work with you, you could still end up being certified. And if they don't, you can finish your degree and then go back for a master's in education, get it done there, and earn more money because now you have a master's degree. Woohoo! Actually, that would be, honestly, that would be my advice to any of you who are thinking about music education. Take that one extra year, get your MAT, Master of Arts in Teaching. Now you got a master's degree. Now your salary goes up. You're another level up on the scale, and you're more saleable because now you have a master's degree to do. So again, I know you hate me saying it depends, it depends, it depends, but it does, because colleges are snowflakes. They're all different from each other, just like we are as people, all different from one another. So Juilliard does it this way, and Carnegie Mellon does it this way, and Jacobs does it this way, and Colburn does it this way. It's like, whoa. So you really have to see. I'll give you an example of that. Auditions. Okay. Every school is different. Every school is different. So you go to Berklee School of Music. What's Berklee's recipe for your audition? Hey, play some stuff, man. They don't give you any particular pieces that you have to play. They give you a genre, but then you pretty much play what you want. And then at the end, they say, hey, we're going to come jam with you. Let's do a session. What? That's a Berklee audition, not Berkeley, California. Berklee School of Music up in Boston. Then go over to Carnegie Mellon, which has a conservatory level program. And Carnegie Mellon says, we want a Beethoven, and we want this kind of Beethoven. We want a Bach, and we want this kind of Bach. And oh yeah, you get a choice of one of these 8 artists. So much, much more formal. Most places are more like Carnegie Mellon than like Berklee. So if you go up to Jacobs, the School of Music in Indiana, another excellent place, you have a little bit more choice, but it is still more prescribed for you. Same with Juilliard, a little bit more prescribed for you to that. So it's a matter of trying to find the right fit, going back to what I said before about the teachers, and then the kind of music that you would want to play. And understand, there are certainly techniques and skills, et cetera, that everybody looks for in an audition. But there's also the aesthetic, subjective component. You might choose as your piece that you want to play something that the professor hearing it doesn't like. Now, you would hope they're going to be a grown-up about that. And even though it's not a piece of music that they like, they would look past that. But they're human. And that's not something that you can control. So be prepared that you might run into situations like that. And there really isn't much that you can do about that. Just know that you've done your best, you've performed your best, and that's really all you can ask of yourself with that. Okay. Is it too early for juniors to look for a sample lesson in December or January? Yeah, it really is. Colleges are still doing seniors now. They're still doing auditions now. I would wait until this class is settled. So April, May, sometime after April or May, and then you become the hunted. Those are their juniors now. Right now, you're hunters, you're looking for colleges. When this year's senior class is settled after May 1st, you become the hunted. Colleges start to look for you. What else? Anything else?
You have some questions in the chat. From Aaron, do conservatories look down on students wanting to do double degree programs?
Oh, not at all, Aaron, not at all. There are many conservatories that brag about their dual degree programs. Juilliard has one with Columbia, for example. Columbia is apparently a pretty decent school in New York. So yeah, they not at all, not at all. And then Oberlin, with its conservatory, they have tons of students that also do a degree in the regular college as well. So no, they brag about them. Hopkins and Peabody. Peabody Conservatory is part of Johns Hopkins University. So a BA at Peabody, not going to be a professional musician, and a BS in neuroscience, they love it. They love it. So no, not at all. Not at all.
This one is from Melina. Does a conservatory or university give a better overall financial aid? How do you compare packages, and can you negotiate the package, or is that offensive?
I'll answer the third question first. It is offensive. It's not that you can't negotiate, but you can inform them of a package that you received elsewhere and then leave it alone. You can't say to them, well, look at what East Jesus gave me, and West Buddha gave me this, and North Zoroaster. You can't really do that. But you can show them what you've been given elsewhere and let them take it, perhaps. So here's the really good thing about music. Music and engineering are the two best supported majors in all this country for merit-based aid. Now let's go back. A little lesson about financial aid. Most financial aid that's given to students is need-based. The family needs the money in order to attend college and send their son or daughter. You could be first in your class, you could be last in your class, you could be in the middle in your class. As long as you're admitted to the college, you will qualify for financial aid. So that's the need-based aid. Roughly 85% of all financial aid is need-based. The other 15% is merit-based. But many of those merit scholarships, like the one that Claire earned, are substantial. That you can get a full ride in some of those instances. And music is one of those places that allows for a lot of really, really extensive scholarship aid. Now, that's merit, right? That your audition is a huge part of that. Your interview that you do while you're auditioning is another part of that. Your academic record is a part of that, but not as big a part of that. I mean, you could be admitted to the music programs at Carnegie Mellon and NYU without having a 10 billion in the SAT. Good luck any other program, but so your audition, your presence as a musician is really a huge part of that. But luckily for us in music, that is one of the best supported fields for for merit money to do. But again, let me circle back. How do you compare financial aid? Well, you apply to a different number of schools and you see what they offer you. This would make a really big difference if you're thinking about applying using an early decision plan. Now, there's two early plans. There's early decision and early action. Early decision and early action work the same way. You send in your applications before the regular deadline. The college gives you special treatment. You compete against fewer students. In many cases, you find out if you're admitted before the winter holiday. But here's where they change. Early decision is binding. If you apply to Carnegie Mellon or Peabody early decision, you're going. Because you would have done the net cost calculator and you would have found out that you could afford this school. And the college will give you whatever financial aid you need because these schools are wealthy. They can do that, right? Early action follows the same rules as early decision, but you're not obligated to attend. There's no downside for early action, none. If any of you have any schools that are early action, use it. I mean, think about it. You get an acceptance letter from some school in December, you're like, whoa, I'm not homeless. Yes. That's a great feeling that you know you're in college. It's a wonderful feeling to do. So if you apply early decision, you're not going to be able to compare financial aid awards. The counter to that is that colleges have the most money available during early decision because they haven't given any of it away yet. And most of the schools that have conservatories are pretty wealthy. Carnegie Mellon, Juilliard, Peabody, Rice, schools like that, they can afford to support students. If you do a comparison, if you take Penn State and Penn, for instance, Penn State's half the price of the University of Pennsylvania. But if you look at the average financial aid award at Penn State, it's $6,000. At Penn, it's $46,000. So guess what school ends up to be cheaper? Penn. Who knew, right? So these are the contradictions that you find in this college admissions process. Things are not always what they seem. So you always have to go down a level and really look at it. But if you want to compare financial aid packages, you have to forego the early decision. Why is that a bad thing? Well, early decision admissions rates are higher than others because colleges know you're committing. How would a college not want to love you if you go early decision? They know you're going to come. They don't have to plan. They know you're coming. Now they have a base for their school. A lot of colleges fill their class, about 50 to 55% of their class go early decision. So they know they have this cushion for that. So you would have to bypass that, an easier admit rate, if you wanted to see if you could compare financial aid packages. It's a great question. That's a really good question. What else, Claire?
I'm not sure if you answered this part, but it was also part of the same question. If a conservatory, between the conservatory university, which one gives overall better financial aid?
Not all of the conservatories are able to give a substantial amount of aid because they're smaller schools. There are two clearly that are the best in the universe, which is Colburn in Los Angeles and Curtis in Philadelphia. They're free. They don't charge tuition. So if you get accepted to either of those schools, all you have to do is worry about your living expenses. And Curtis will mostly take care of that as well. Colburn, not as much. Not as much. Now, conservatories in schools that are well endowed, Peabody at Hopkins, for example, Oberlin, the Oberlin Conservatory, Rice, schools like that, they have substantial endowments, so they can afford to give you a ton of money. Shenandoah, great conservatory, not a lot of money. University of Cincinnati, great conservatory, not a lot of money. Lawrence University, great conservatory, not a lot of money. University of North Texas, one of the best string conservatories in the universe, great conservatory, not a lot of money. So this, again, this is another research thing to do to see what the endowment is for these schools and what their average financial aid is. Now, don't go to each website. There's a phenomenal website called the National Center for Education Statistics. So it's NCES. N is in Nancy, C is in Charlie, E is in easy, S is in Sam, nces.ed.gov. And when you get into the website, you choose a program called College Navigator. You choose the school. So let's say it's Shenandoah. You pick Shenandoah University, Shenandoah, Virginia, 70 miles west of DC. Beautiful, beautiful campus. And you pick Shenandoah, and you'll see 3 different areas. You'll see tuition, you'll see financial aid, and you'll see scholarships. Check all 3 of those, and you'll find out what the average financial aid is. So Shenandoah costs $50,000, not $70,000, like Johns Hopkins, but the average financial aid is 18. So you're paying 32. Hopkins costs 70, average financial aid is 50. You're paying 20. So this is the kind of research that you have to do. Unless you're lucky enough to just say, okay, I have $1 zillion, I'll just do what I want to do. That would be nice. But that's not usually what most of us can do. So, okay.
So,
If you are doing ED and hoping for a merit grant, does admissions see your financials? Yes, they do. There are financial aid forms called the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And then in some cases, the profile. Some schools require the college scholarship profile. So if you're applying for financial aid, yes, they will see that. It doesn't mean that you're not eligible for merit money. These scholarships stack. So you can get $30,000 in need-based aid and still get a $10,000 merit scholarship. And they're not mutually exclusive. So not to worry about that. What I mean is, might I get some scholarship if my family can afford it? Yes. If your family cannot afford need-based costs, you will get some need-based money. And then everybody is up for consideration for a merit scholarship, because that has nothing to do with need. That has to do with musical talent and potential. That's what that has to do with. Okay. Okay. Next question.
I'm just waiting for anyone to ask any more questions in the chat. But for that last question, I can kind of give a little bit something with that.
Jump in, Claire, please.
So you mentioned before I am a presidential scholar for Temple University. I actually got that scholarship based on my grades, and I got financial aid. So I have the full ride scholarship on top of the financial aid. So it is possible. And then I also got a music scholarship also later in the year. But yeah, I know that it is possible. So definitely keep your hopes up with that.
So you should get Claire's email address and ask her for money for college. Isn't that great? Isn't that phenomenal? That's absolutely phenomenal. Good for you, Claire.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Here's another question. I missed it. Here we go. Is having a job while going to college realistic for a music major?
Yes, but the job should be in the music library. If you can make your job having something to do with music, absolutely. Colleges have events all the time. So maybe you're part of a Baroque ensemble and you play at maybe 2 or 3 events a month and you get a certain amount of money for playing. There you go. Perfect. Perfect. So try your best to have your job relate directly to your studies in music. I mean, even if it is just, not just, I shouldn't say that, but working in the music library, because then you can pick up a lot of the vibe in the music library as well to do. When I worked at Swarthmore, I would go over to the music library often because I always had questions about the music program and how things worked. And it was just wonderful because the music students, several, were working at the time. And I would just go over and say, hey, Anne Laurie, and they boom, and I have all the information that I would need for that. Worst job in college, the dining hall. Don't take a job in the dining hall because when anybody doesn't like the food, whom do they blame? You. Best job, other than being in the music library, babysitting the field house. You have a 3-hour shift. You make $10 an hour. You hand out 4 basketballs, 6 towels, and a tennis racket. That's it. You sit and do your homework and you listen to music. Great job. Great job.
Okay, I think here's another question. Do you have any recommendations for someone looking to explore different topics in college, both within and outside of music? And is this something that comes naturally with most college programs, or is it necessary to actively make sure you get that education?
If you go to a conservatory, you are unlikely to take classes in virtually anything else. If you go to a college with a strong music program, you will sample the liberal arts. Typically, you will take some classes in the humanities, English, classics, language, art. You'll take some classes in the social sciences, history, psychology, political science, economics, and you'll take some classes in the sciences, biochem, physics, math. So my best advice there would be keep music at the forefront and decide, do I want to do a major or do I want to do a minor? And how much of a major do I want to do? Do I want to do a performance degree, a BM, or do I want to do a BA? So keep that at the top and then explore your other interests. You will have up until the end of your sophomore year to declare your major. So you have plenty of time to look around. So maybe you're thinking, oh boy, I see all this stuff about neurology. I think that would be like the coolest thing ever. So you go and you take some neurology courses in college, and now you're hooked. This is the greatest thing ever. So you would be able to do a double major, a BA music, a BS neuro. You could do that. Or BM in music and a minor in neuroscience. Don't go to a school that's so specialized that you don't have any choices. So if you're not sure you want to do a BM, don't go to Peabody. Don't go to Juilliard. It's just like you're going out to eat with your friends on a Friday night. You're hungry, but you don't know what you want to eat. Where do you go? Well, you don't go to KFC because they only have chicken. And you don't go to Nina's Sushi Shack because they only have sushi. You go to Applebee's. You go to your local diner. You go to the buffet. You go to the place that has a wide menu. Claire is in such a school. Claire's at Temple. Temple has this fabulous music program and a zillion other majors. Temple has a school of nursing. Temple has a school of business. Temple has a school of art. Temple has a liberal, oh my God, there's all this stuff to do. So she has a wide menu from which she can choose. That's my advice. Find the schools that have the wider menus.
That was our last question.
Yep, and we're right at the end now.
Yeah.
So anybody, if there are other questions that you have and we didn't get to them or you were a little too shy to ask them, my email is my first name. It's Cigus. C is in Charlie, I is in ice, G is in garage, U is in United, S is in Sam, Cigus at cigus.net. Feel free, I will answer. Might not be the next day, but I will definitely answer and try to help you. Claire and I thank you for your attention for this. And if you want, you can stay for the next session. One of the professors from Juilliard is going to talk about music. She's amazing, Mary. So please stay on, take a little break, and she's on at 5 o'clock. But thank you, Claire, for your help, and thank you, everybody, for your attention. Okay, see ya.